Hello, my dear mastermind. They've been checking their files, going back through their records, cross-referencing their databases, looking for the profile they created on you years ago. The psychological assessment, the behavioral patterns, the predictability scores, the limitations they documented, the weaknesses they cataloged. They're pulling up everything they thought they knew about you, and none of it matches. Not even close. The person standing in front of them now, the energy emanating from you, the frequency you're operating at, it doesn't align with a single data point they have on file. It's like you're a completely different person wearing the same face, and that's exactly what deeply unsettles them. Because people don't change like this. Not according to their models, not according to their research, not according to everything they thought they understood about human behavior. People evolve gradually, predictably, within measurable parameters. But you didn't evolve. You transformed, completely, and they have no explanation for it. But here's what they don't realize yet. What you did during that quiet period wasn't random. It was intentional. Let me tell you what they had on you. What was in those files. They had you mapped. Your triggers, your patterns, your responses. They knew what made you react, what made you retreat, what made you compromise. They had predicted your trajectory based on your history, your conditioning, your circumstances. According to their records, you were supposed to stay within certain boundaries. You were categorized, filed, understood. Just another predictable pattern in their system. They documented your insecurities, the ones you tried to hide, but they could see clearly. Your need for validation, your fear of rejection, your tendency to people please, your habit of shrinking to make others comfortable. All of it was noted, recorded, used to predict your future choices and behaviors. They even had timelines based on your patterns. They predicted when you'd settle, when you'd compromise, when you'd accept that certain versions of success weren't meant for you. Think about it like this. They had you scheduled to plateau by 35, accept limitations by 40, stop reaching entirely by 45. But then something happened that wasn't in their predictions. You went quiet, and in that silence, you became someone they had no file for. You disappeared so completely that they started creating theories. Maybe you gave up. Maybe you couldn't handle the pressure. Maybe you finally accepted your limitations. They had narratives, explanations, stories that made sense to them. What they didn't know was that every day you were silent. You were making choices they couldn't track. Small decisions that seemed insignificant. Reading when you used to scroll. Thinking when you used to react. Building when you used to consume. None of it was dramatic. None of it was visible. But every single choice was rewiring you at a fundamental level. While they were writing you off, you were writing a new version of yourself. You withdrew from the spaces where they were monitoring you, stopped performing for the audiences that were documenting you, stepped away from the environments where they thought they had you figured out. And in that silence, in that withdrawal, you began changing in ways their models couldn't track, because they can only measure what they can see. They can only document what you show them, and you stopped showing them anything. You went internal, deep internal, into spaces where their observation tools couldn't reach, while they thought you were struggling. You were studying, While they assumed you were stuck, you were evolving. While they believed you were the same person just going through a difficult phase, you were actually shedding an old version and rebuilding into something completely different. The transformation was happening in ways they didn't have instruments to detect. You weren't just changing your circumstances, you were changing your entire operating system, rewiring your core patterns, becoming someone fundamentally different at the identity level. And then you emerged. Not with an announcement, not with a big reveal. You just showed up one day as this new version. And the moment they saw you, the moment they felt your presence, nothing aligned with what they expected. The person in front of them didn't match the profile, didn't fit the pattern, didn't behave according to the predictions. They pulled up the old files thinking there must have been some mistake, checked the documentation thinking they must have missed something, but there wasn't, because the person they had on record simply doesn't exist anymore. That version is gone, completely. And here's the beautiful part. You didn't just outgrow their expectations. You made their entire system of measurement irrelevant. The way you move now, it's different. Not just physically, energetically. The old you moved with a certain carefulness, a need to fit in, a concern about how you were perceived. This new version moves with certainty, with a quiet confidence that doesn't seek validation, with a presence that doesn't apologize for the space it takes up. The way you speak now, it's transformed. The old you measured words carefully, filtered thoughts to be acceptable, adjusted communication to please others. This version speaks truth without decoration, expresses thoughts without filtering, communicates with a directness that wasn't there before. So they're confused, deeply confused. Because in their understanding of human nature, this kind of transformation shouldn't be possible. And here's what makes it worse for them. They can't even explain the change to others. When someone asks about you, they struggle to articulate what's different. It's not one thing they can point to, it's everything. Your entire frequency has shifted. They'll say things like something's different, or they've changed, but they can't identify what specifically changed because everything changed. Your energy, your standards, your boundaries, your presence, even your silence carries weight now. The way you used to fill awkward pauses, now you let them sit. The way you used to over-explain yourself, now you simply state and move on. The way you used to seek reassurance, now you trust your own knowing. They're experiencing cognitive dissonance. Their brain can't reconcile the old data with the new reality. They're trying to figure it out. What happened during that quiet period? What catalyst created this change? Was it a person you met? A book you read? An experience you had? They're looking for the external explanation, the logical cause, the identifiable trigger. Because accepting that you simply chose to become someone completely different, that you chose transformation over comfort, feels too destabilizing to their worldview. If you can change this completely, if you can become this unrecognizable, if you can transform so fundamentally that their entire assessment of you becomes outdated, then what does that say about their system? What does that say about their ability to predict human behavior? What does that say about the limitations they place on people? So what do they see now when they look at you? They see confidence where they recorded insecurity. They see clarity where they documented confusion. They see boundaries where they noted people-pleasing tendencies. They see self-respect where they observed self-doubt. They see sovereignty where they catalog dependency. For instance, the person who used to ask permission to speak now holds rooms with silence. The person who apologized for existing now occupies space without explanation. None of it matches. And what they're about to realize changes everything. It's not just surface changes. It's not like you're performing confidence or displaying strength. This is real. This is integrated. This is who you actually are now at a core level. They can feel the authenticity of it, can sense that this isn't a mask you're wearing, but a truth you've embodied. And that makes it even more confusing because transformation like this isn't supposed to happen this completely. They're trying to update their files now, attempting to create a new profile that matches the current version, running new assessments, making new predictions. But here's the problem. You're not stable enough for them to document. Not because you're chaotic, because you're still evolving, still transforming. Every time they think they've figured out the new you, you've already shifted again. What's starting to dawn on them is that this isn't a phase. This isn't temporary confidence you're borrowing. This isn't a mask you'll eventually take off. This is permanent. This is who you are now. And that realization is hitting them in waves. First, they thought you were faking it. Then they thought you'd crack under pressure. Then they thought time would reveal the old you underneath. But none of that happened. Pressure didn't shake you. It refined you. Time didn't expose weakness. It revealed more strength. Challenge didn't make you retreat. It made you expand. Every test they thought would bring back the old version just proves that version is gone forever. And that permanence is what they're struggling to accept. Because if you can change this completely and never go back, what does that mean about their own potential? What does that mean about the limitations they've accepted for themselves? They want to know your new patterns so they can predict your behavior. But your patterns now are too sophisticated for their models. They want to identify your new weaknesses so they can know where you're vulnerable. But the vulnerabilities they're searching for no longer define you. They want to find your new triggers so they can influence your responses. But you're operating from a center they can't access. And here's what keeps them unsettled. The version they had on record isn't hiding, isn't dormant, isn't going to resurface when things get difficult. That version is finished, not metaphorically finished, completely concluded. You ended it, intentionally, fully, and you're never going back. The person who needed their approval, gone. The person who feared their judgment, removed. The person who shrank to make them comfortable, released. The person who operated from scarcity and fear, left behind. You didn't just change some behaviors. You concluded an entire identity and formed a completely new one. And this new version, it was built from the ground up using completely different foundations, different values, different priorities, different understanding of what matters. You're not the old version refined. You're a completely different operating system, and there's no return path. This new version of you runs on completely different programming. The old you operated from external validation. This version operates from internal knowing. The old you was motivated by fear of judgment. This version is guided by alignment with truth. The old you made decisions to please others. This version makes decisions to honor self. But here's the shift that changed everything. The person on record was built by conditioning, by other people's expectations, by societal programming. This new version was built from the inside out, created by you, for you, based on your actual values, not inherited ones. based on your authentic desires, not conditioned ones, based on your true nature, not your adapted personality. This version is genuine in a way the old version never was. And genuine can't be faked, can't be copied, can't be analyzed using tools designed to measure performance and pretense. Their assessment methods are built for evaluating masks, roles, personas. But you're not wearing a mask anymore. You're being real. And real is unreadable to people who only know how to interact with performance. There's a profound freedom in becoming unrecognizable to the system that tried to define you, in being so different from your documented profile that their predictions no longer apply, in transforming so completely that their old understanding of you becomes useless, because when they can't categorize you, they can't manage you. When they can't predict you, they can't influence you. When they can't recognize you, they can't treat you according to their old strategies. You've become a variable they don't have formulas for, a pattern they don't have models to decode. This freedom isn't about rebellion. It's about transcendence. You're not fighting their system. You're operating outside it entirely. You're not proving them wrong. You're making their assessments irrelevant. You're not seeking their approval. You're making their judgment ineffective. And what they're starting to understand unsettles them. You're not unpredictable because you're chaotic. You're unpredictable because you're aligned. And aligned forces don't negotiate. There's been an internal shift, and they can feel it. Not the kind of power that announces itself, not the kind that demands recognition, but the kind that simply exists and reorganizes everything around it. You're not trying to overpower conversations, yet people listen differently when you speak. You're not trying to control outcomes, yet situations tend to move in your direction. You're not trying to unsettle anyone, yet something about your presence makes people think twice before testing you. This is the power of someone who stopped seeking power and started embodying it, stopped chasing respect and started commanding it through character, stopped demanding space and started occupying it naturally. And they don't know how to respond to this kind of power because it doesn't play by the rules they understand. It doesn't compete. It doesn't defend. It doesn't need to prove itself. It just is, going forward. They're gonna keep trying to figure you out. Keep attempting to create new profiles. Keep looking for ways to make you fit into their understanding. But they won't succeed. Not because you're trying to be mysterious, because you're authentic. And authenticity at your level of awareness is inherently unclassifiable. You're going to keep evolving, keep transforming, keep becoming more of who you really are. And every time they think they've updated their understanding, you'll have already moved beyond it. Not to confuse them, just because you're committed to continuous growth. Committed to never settling into a fixed identity that can be documented and predicted. Here's the deeper truth about why you don't match anything on record. You were never meant to be the person they tried to document. That person was a compromise, a survival strategy, a version you created to navigate a world that demanded you be smaller than you are. But something in you always knew you were more than their profile suggested. And when you finally honored that knowing, when you finally gave yourself permission to become that person, everything changed. The files they had on you, those weren't just documents. They were limitations, boxes they put you in, ceilings they placed above you, stories they told themselves about what you were capable of. And every time you outgrow their assessment, every time you exceed their predictions, Every time you become more than they thought possible, you're not just proving them wrong. You're freeing yourself from their limited vision. You're outgrowing their ceiling. You're stepping out of their box. You're rewriting their story. And the most powerful part, you're doing it without their permission, without their approval, without their understanding. You don't need them to recognize your transformation for it to be real. You don't need them to update their files for you to be free. You don't need them to understand who you've become for you to continue becoming more. The version they see now, this is closer to who you've always been beneath the conditioning. This is what emerges when you stop performing and start being. This is what happens when you stop trying to fit their expectations and start honoring your authentic nature. This is you without the costume, without the mask, without the personality you built to survive. So let them be confused. Let them struggle to update their records. Let them try to understand how someone can transform this completely. While they're processing the gap between who you were and who you are now, you'll continue evolving into who you're becoming. The version of you they see today doesn't match anything they had documented before. And that's a good thing. It means you're finally becoming authentic, finally stepping into your true strength, finally expressing who you really are beneath the performance. You're not who they thought you were. You're not who they predicted you'd become. You've grown into someone entirely different, someone they never anticipated, someone their frameworks couldn't forecast, someone their systems couldn't define. And that version, the one that doesn't fit any previous record, that's the real you, the you that was always there, the you that no longer needs permission, the you that doesn't return to being reduced, labeled, or limited. Welcome to being unrecognizable. It's exactly where you're meant to be.